For the best meat you have ever eaten in your life, go to samsbutchershop.com. Enter the coupon code Triple T when you check out for a 10% discount. Hello, everybody. Thank you for watching. I am Trailer Trash Tim. Happy Wednesday to you. I'm glad that you are here. I got a lot to cover, so let's get going. And I want to start with the appeals court decision that was handed down yesterday with regard to President Trump and his call for immunity. He was claiming he had immunity in this D.C. election case. Now, this is the case that originated in U.S. District Court. It was being prosecuted, or is being prosecuted, by Jack Smith, this disgrace. And it was Judge Tanya Chutkan. It might be hard to keep up with this. He's got court cases all over the place. He's got court cases in New York. He's got them in Miami. He has them in Atlanta. He has them in Washington, D.C. You can see this is how the deep state is trying to take Donald Trump out, is by the judicial process. And if they can't do that, of course, that I maintain they have other plans for him. They will do anything to keep Trump out of the White House, and right now they're throwing every legal maneuver at him that they possibly can. So if you're keeping score at home, this is the one that is in Washington, D.C. again, in the U.S. District Court. So Trump was pushing back against this evil prosecutor, Jack Smith, and this judge, Tanya Chutkan, and it's completely stacked against him. So he is basically appealing to the district court, the appellate court, maintaining that as a former president, he has immunity from prosecution. I didn't expect this to succeed, and it didn't. But the story goes like this. A federal appeals court in Washington, D.C., rules that Donald Trump does not have immunity from prosecution in his election case as a result of having been president at the time of the alleged crimes. He is expected now to turn to the Supreme Court for a final ruling. Of course, if they ruled he does have immunity, that would bring this particular case to a halt, one would assume. I don't know what the Supreme Court's going to do. It's a crapshoot. They could go either way on it. It's usually, or maybe not usually, but quite often it's 5-4 or 4-5 in a lot of cases. There's 9 justices. There's at least 4 whack jobs on the Supreme Court. You never know what John Roberts is going to do, the Chief Justice, but he usually does the wrong thing. He certainly did with Obamacare. And he certainly is no fan of Donald Trump. Amy Coney Barrett, he has made a recent terrible ruling. So the only reliable judges we've got on there are Judge Clarence Thomas is reliable. Maybe a couple of others. Kavanaugh, but we'll just see how it goes. But anyway, Donald Trump, they say, is not immune from criminal charges related to his efforts to overturn his loss in the 2020 election. It's a 3-judge panel. They reject his argument that he cannot be prosecuted because he was president at the time of the alleged crimes. Quote, "We cannot accept that the office of the presidency places its former occupants above the law for all time thereafter. This ruling is the latest major legal loss for Trump, who is the front runner for the GOP nomination. He is going to now appeal this to the Supreme Court." And they continued, "For the purpose of this criminal case, former President Trump has become Citizen Trump with all the defenses of any other criminal defendant. But any executive immunity that may have protected him while he served as president no longer protects him against this prosecution." And it goes on and on and on. But I want to point out these judges. This is a 3-judge panel. The judges' names are Judge Florence Pan, P-A-N, Judge Michelle Childs, and Judge Karen LaCraft. I mention this because here's what we know about these 3 D.C. appellate judges in the district court. Pan and Childs are judges who were appointed by, you got it, Joe Biden. Karen LaCraft has been on there the longest, and she was appointed to her position by Papa Bush, George H.W. Bush, during his tenure as president. So that would be sometime between 88 and 92. So this is going to go to the Supreme Court, and we will see what happens. But they are just absolutely trying to drown Trump in all of this legal maneuvering and make it impossible for him to continue his quest to return to the White House. So we will see how it goes. But there's a point about all this that really needs to be made, ladies and gentlemen, and it is simply this. I'm sure many, or if not most, or not all of you have noticed, particularly in the last several years, I don't know how many years, 10, 20 years, maybe longer. You know, we have in the United States, in terms of governance, we have the separation of powers. We have the executive branch of government, that's the presidency. We have the legislative branch of government, that's the Congress, the House of Representatives, and the U.S. Senate. And then, of course, we have the judicial branch of government. These are our three branches of government, which, by the way, a heck of a lot of Americans probably can't name, and that's a pity. You think maybe ought to be required that you should, in order to vote, you ought to be able to name those three branches of government at least. You know, Vivek Ramaswamy used to call for a civics test to be taken by anybody who wanted to cast a vote. I got no beef with that at all. I'm fine with that. I think voting should be harder in America, not easier. I think that we should suppress the vote, which is to say we should make sure you are a qualified citizen before you get to step into a voting booth. And I don't believe it's too much. It's certainly not too much to ask for a photo ID. Obviously, and I don't think it's too much to ask that you know a little bit about your government, such as the three branches of government, such as some of our founding documents. What can you tell them about it? Tell us about them. I think we ought to make it a little bit harder to vote. Maybe that would stem the tide of all of these votes being cast by dead people. How about single day voting? How about no more mail-in ballots? Things like that. I think it should be harder. I think we need to start weeding out some people who are voting so that they can't vote anymore, because they shouldn't be voting, for heaven's sakes. If you're an illegal alien, you shouldn't be voting. If you can't present a driver's license or a photo ID, you got no business casting a vote. It's absurd. But anyway, there's your three branches of government, the executive, the judicial, and the legislative. But the point I want to make is this. Have you noticed, as time has gone along, that we now seem to be governed more and more by the judicial branch of government? We have so many judges, federal judges, state judges, three-panel judges, who just keep issuing these dictates from the bench as to how we are to live our lives. Issuing these rulings as to how we're supposed to be governing ourselves, when it is not their job alone, of course. The three branches of government are supposed to work in unison, not always in agreement, but certainly in unison, with one not being more powerful than the other. But if you ask me, the judicial branch of government has stepped way out of its bounds, and it has stepped way beyond its authority. And I think that something needs to happen. For one thing, we need to get some sane individuals into these judgeships, if you will. But this brings up an even greater question that I want to ask today. And the question is simply this. Answer this for me down below, if you will, in the comment section. I'd love to get your ideas on this. Who is actually running the United States of America? Who is actually running the United States of America? Now, we all understand, in all likelihood, that Joe Biden isn't running anything. Joe Biden can't tie his own shoes. So you can't convince me that Biden is functioning as president. He has the title, but he has handlers who are making decisions for him. And as you know, I will not be shy at all in saying that, in my opinion, this is the third term of Barack Obama, and I believe that he's living ostensibly down the street calling the shots. And Biden is his puppet. I absolutely believe the tentacles of Obama remain in Washington and remain in power. We have record of him saying he'd like to do that. I've played that in a previous video, literally saying he would be fine doing that. But who is running America? It's funny to me that so many people, enemies of Trump, those who have TDS, Trump Derangement Syndrome, those who just loathe Donald Trump, they often accuse him of being a dictator or an authoritarian, or, the guy who ran Germany for so long. And that's such nonsense. I could cite you so many examples of democratic authoritarianism or authoritarianism by Democrats. It was Obama who said, strike of the pen, law of the land. That was Obama. That wasn't a Republican. Is that not authoritarian? These presidents who just issue these edicts as if they are dictators, they're Democrats that do that, folks. How about all the executive orders signed by Obama and Biden that smacks of dictatorship? President Triple T, the first day in office, the first thing I would do is rescind every previous EO signed by my predecessor, Joe Biden. And Trump ought to do the same thing. But who is running America? I want to give you a couple of ideas, or a few ideas. I believe we are being governed, of course, by courts who have overstepped their bounds, but it goes far deeper than that. I have some ideas for you. I believe we are being governed by the deep state, and that is to say the bureaucratic machine in and around the D.C. Beltway, those who are elected and unelected. This was the appeal to me of Vivek Ramaswamy, who was saying that as president, 75% of the bureaucracy he would do away with. And he was talking about those who are unelected, that get to Washington and never leave. He was saying, and he was right, that you can vote out politicians, but you can't vote out the bureaucracy. And so many of these people, these bureaucrats, these unelected people that sit in the pillars of power in Washington, they write policy, they levy fines, they carry weapons with them. They can affect your lives negatively just as much as any elected official in Washington, D.C. They make up this deep state that is absolutely governing America. How about the World Economic Forum? Do they have a hand in how we are governed? How about the World Health Organization? Is the way we are governed influenced by them? How about Israel? Do you believe Israel has a lot of influence and sway over how our government is run? Don't be naive. The answer is yes. And one other possibility, and you can take this to the bank. We have a problem with the bedfellows of the government and corporations who are in bed with each other. They wield tremendous influence together, corporations and the government. Now, I am a free market kind of a guy. I love to see people establish corporations and companies and for them to grow. I'm a big fan of Mike Lindell. You know, if you've got a great idea, a great product, go out there and start a business and grow it, and I hope you become a multimillionaire. That's wonderful. But when you get into bed with government, that is an unholy alliance, and we have got a whole lot of that going on, in particularly with the military-industrial complex, which President Eisenhower warned us about. Did he not? He was prophetic. I could go on and on about that, but these are some of my candidates for who is actually running the United States. The last one I would put on there would be Biden, who is nothing but a figurehead, a mouthpiece, a guy who is incompetent and mentally incapacitated to the point that he's giving up free ad time in a pre-Super Bowl interview this Sunday, where he would be exposed to billions of people. And of course, the DNC knows it, which is why they can't allow it. Right? Who's running our government? I just gave you the prime candidates right there. I'll tell you this much. It ain't me and it ain't you. It is incestuous. It is evil. It has gone way beyond its bounds as intentionally set forth by the framers. We are supposed to have a three-pronged government, but instead we have a government that is run and manipulated by outside influences. That is why you see so much anti-American policy emanating from the halls of power in Washington. Let me move on. I got several things here. Let me go on to a big update on man-made global warming. The theory, which has been so thoroughly debunked as being bunk that its proponents years ago had to change the terminology, the nomenclature, if you will, and now they'd simply call it climate change because MMGW has been discredited. Well, this article appeared in BNO News, and it goes like this. At least 13 killer whales are trapped in ice in northern Japan. Miss Pat Ornsby, did you know this? Officials are unable to launch a rescue attempt. Have you got that? At least 13 killer whales are trapped under ice in northern Japan. Officials are unable to launch a rescue attempt. Now, why do I bring this up? For this reason. Do you know who said in the year do you know who said the following? Ice caps will be completely gone by the year 2017. Anybody got a guess? Anybody? Raise your hand. Let me see. Yeah, a couple of you have got it. That's right. The ice caps will be gone completely by the year 2017. That would be good old Al Gore. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Good old Al Gore, who warned us all that we were doomed years ago. He warned us we had no time left. My Lord, we only got a few years. We got to do something. Of course, the climate change movement, otherwise known as the man-made global warming movement, existed for one reason. This is where all the leftists made their home, was with the climate change. Oh, don't you care about the environment? Don't you care about the little deer? We're all going to die. This is where they wanted to direct all their efforts because it was the climate became their god. The environment became their god to them. Now, I don't know of any rational conservative who is not an environmentalist, which is to say a conservationist, somebody who wants good air, good water. Democrats constantly accuse Republicans, oh, you want dirty air and you want dirty water. That's such nonsense. No, we don't. We want good air and good water. We just want responsible and rational policy with regard to our environment. That's all. But Al Gore said the ice caps would be completely gone by 2017, which was 7 years ago now. Well, Al Gore, guess what, buddy? At least 13 killer whales disagree with you. At least 13 killer whales, Al Gore, would tell you otherwise. By the way, Al Gore, in that huge mansion you built in California, how much is your power bill? Asking for 350 million friends. All right, let's move on. I got several things there. How about this? Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, tweeted this on November 11th, 2023, last November. What was this, 4 months ago, 3 months ago? Mike Johnson, this is a direct quote from Mike Johnson. Today, I am keeping my promise to the American people and making all the J6 tapes available to all Americans. November 17th, 2023. Today, I'm doing this. Today is February 7th, I believe. Wednesday, February 7th. Guess who has not kept his promise that he didn't fulfill in a 24-hour time period? That would be Speaker Mike Johnson. Guess what has not been released as of February the 7th? You got it. All the J6 tapes. We're still waiting, Speaker Johnson. You made us a promise. You lied. I'm not impressed with this guy one little bit. I mean, 5 minutes after they swore him in, I knew we'd elected a turkey. We might as well have kept McCarthy in office. It's about the same thing. There's no difference. All right, how about this? Chris Christie. Good old Chris Christie. The former governor and failed presidential contender, the former governor of New Jersey, has written a new book. I bet you haven't heard about it. I guarantee you haven't bought it. Chris Christie has a new book, and I ain't going to spend a lot of time on this. The title of Chris Christie's new book is What Would Reagan Do? Life Lessons from the Last Great President. What would Reagan do? Hey, Governor Christie, I'll tell you what Reagan would do. Specifically, I'll tell you what Reagan wouldn't do. He sure as heck wouldn't vote for you. Now, I predict it'll be a matter of months, within a year, before you go to your nearest thrift store if you're an American, and you're going to find a copy of What Would Reagan Do in your thrift store selling for maybe a quarter, maybe 50 cents. Nobody's going to buy this book. Nor should they. To have Christie telling us what Reagan would do. He wouldn't govern like you, Governor. He wouldn't walk a beach hand in hand, arm in arm, cheek to cheek with Barack Obama, Governor Christie. He wouldn't do that. He wouldn't be lambasting a fellow Republican as you did Donald Trump. Anyway, so much for that. That's as much time as I'm giving you, Chris. How about this? Have you heard? I mentioned this on the live stream Sunday. I don't have anything else to say about it because I don't know any details. I'm just waiting for it to come out. But Tucker Carlson is either in Moscow or has left Moscow to interview President Vladimir Putin. I am really looking forward to this interview. And CNN is pissed off about it. And that's just one example. The leftist media walking in step with the American government is absolutely beside itself that Tucker Carlson has the gall, the unmitigated gall to go to Moscow and sit down at a table with Vladimir Putin and just actually sit there and have a conversation with him. The government of the United States is not happy with Tucker. But I am. Tucker's doing what all journalists should be doing, is he not? Tucker Carlson is doing his job. I have no doubt he's going to ask Putin some hard questions, and he should. But Tucker Carlson is a real journalist. It's outrageous that the American media would be angry with him. Maybe they're just jealous of him. I don't know. But they're so slanted. They're so biased. They're so one-sided. Their news cycle is absolutely replete and dominated by stories that are fueled by Trump hatred. It's all they can talk about. They're consumed with it. There's no objectivity in American journalism any longer. I mean, you have to look for it anymore to find some objective journalism. It's just almost non-existent. I try to be objective. I don't claim to be a journalist, but with regard like to Donald Trump, I don't hate Donald Trump. I'm not crazy about Donald Trump, but I don't have TDS. I'm objective about Donald Trump. When I think he's wrong, I'll tell you I think he's wrong. That's not something you'll get from people like Laura Loomer, who is the opposite of TDS, has the opposite of TDS. Everything Trump does, she loves. That's not objective, okay? But the whole American media and the deep state is ticked off with Tucker Carlson because we have a narrative about Putin in America that so many Americans fall for hook, line, and sinker. Putin bad, Russia evil, Russia. You don't even stop to think about how rational or irrational that is. It is such... Do you believe that your government lies to you? Do you believe that the American media lies to you? If you would say yes to that, then you should naturally conclude everything they're telling you about Putin and everything they're telling you about Russia is also a lie. And it is. If you watch Tucker Carlson and have an open mind and be objective, you may come from that with a little bit different perspective on things. And I look forward to watching that. Okay, I've got one more thing. All right, I've got to cover this. One more thing here. All right, as you know, this Sunday is the Super Bowl. Now, we've been seeing a lot in the American media lately, particularly with ad buys, especially at sporting events, in particular with the NFL. We have been inundated here lately with ads and media featuring pop superstar, what's her name? Oh, yeah, Taylor Swift. There's a lot of Swifties in America. Well, Taylor Swift, if you didn't know, has a little boyfriend. He's a man by the name of Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce is a member of the Kansas City Chiefs. He's a tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs, who are going to the Super Bowl this Sunday to play the San Francisco 49ers. And they have both become darlings of the media. And this is not an accident that this has happened, because they have one thing in common other than their mutual affection for one another. Taylor Swift is a big-time supporter of Joe Biden. Why? Because she's crazy? I don't know. She has TDS. She loathes Donald Trump. Well, first of all, honey, I wouldn't... You couldn't pay me $100 and give me a front row seat and she be across the street from my house to watch her in concert. I'd say, that's okay. I'm going to go watch the coat hangers rust. I don't give two hoots about Taylor Swift. Travis Kelce, while his girlfriend is a big supporter of Joe Biden, so I guess you could assume that he is too, but whatever the case, one thing we do know about Travis Kelce, he is a big fan of the jabs, along with people like Martha Stewart and Usher and a few other pop culture icons. Travis Kelce is a big proponent and shill for the Pfizer Corporation. So do the math, ladies and gentlemen. We've got the Super Bowl coming up Sunday, where billions of people will be watching the event, and featured in the event will be Biden lover Taylor Swift and Pfizer/jab lover Travis Kelce. It's a match made in heaven, wouldn't you say? These two lovebirds, they hate Biden and they love Pfizer. Isn't it interesting that they are being featured in ads and in media on and around the Super Bowl in front of billions of people? Interesting, isn't it? Gee, who's behind all that? I want to take the opportunity to encourage you to keep your eye on the ball, as we used to say in Little League. Keep your eye on the ball. Keep your eyes off of Taylor Swift and American sports, because that ain't important. Keep your eye on what's really happening in front of you that emanates from Washington, D.C. Don't give Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce any of your time. They've got nothing for you but everything that's bad for you. And that's all there is to it. Hey, do me a favor. Give me a comment down below. Love to hear what you've got to say today. Give me a big thumbs up on the video. I would appreciate that very much. And subscribe to the Triple T channel if you have not yet. I would appreciate that very much. Everybody go out there and have a tremendous Wednesday. This is Trailer Trash Tim, and I'll see you soon.